A cold breeze swept through the narrow alley as Fatima stepped out of the car with her daughter near. The city's chaos seemed a distant memory now. They had just moved into this small town, leaving behind the pain of the past and hoping for a new beginning. Noor was just 6 years old, quiet and unusually observant for her age. She had not spoken much since her father passed away in a tragic accident the previous year. The house they moved into was an old colonial-style bungalow, inherited from Fatima's late uncle. With moss-covered walls and creaky wooden floors, the house stood tall but forgotten. Despite its eerie silence, it held a kind of charm that comforted Fatima. As they entered, Noor looked around with wide eyes. The house seemed to welcome her in a strange, unsettling way. While Fatima unpacked, Noor wandered off into one of the rooms. It was a dusty old nursery filled with cobwebs, broken furniture, and in the corner an antique toy chest. Noor slowly walked to it, her little fingers brushing off years of dust. The chest creaked open. Inside lay a single doll. It was a beautiful porcelain doll with curly black hair, piercing green eyes, and a faded red dress. But something about it felt wrong. Noor picked it up and smiled for the first time in months. Fatima was relieved to see Noor smiling again. She assumed it was just a doll, a harmless toy that perhaps reminded her of better times. But that night, the house whispered. Windows rattled without wind. Floorboards groaned under invisible steps. And Noor, who had always been a light sleeper, slept soundly clutching the doll. The next morning, Fatima noticed scratches on the nursery walls. Small, childlike scribbles in red. She blamed rats. Noor said nothing. Days passed. Noor changed. She stopped eating properly, laughed to herself for no reason, and began speaking in a low tone too deep for a 6-year-old. Fatima grew anxious, but assumed it was just trauma showing new symptoms. One evening, Fatima heard Noor talking in her room. "No, I won't hurt her," Noor whispered. A pause. "I said no." Fatima barged in, expecting to find her on a toy phone or with some imaginary friend. Instead, Noor was sitting alone with the doll, staring into its eyes. "Noor, who are you talking to?" "She doesn't like it when you interrupt," Noor replied, her tone cold. Fatima froze. "Who doesn't?" "The girl and the doll." Fatima didn't know what to say. She picked up the doll, intending to throw it away. But as soon as her hand touched it, a sharp pain ran through her arm like electricity. She dropped it instantly. That night, Noor had a nightmare. She screamed and thrashed violently, crying that the girl was angry. Fatima woke her, trying to comfort her. Noor looked up with teary eyes and whispered, "She wants you gone." From that night onward, Fatima could feel a presence in the house. Lights flickered. The sound of giggling echoed in empty hallways. Doors opened and closed on their own, and Noor became increasingly distant. Fatima tried to research the history of the house, desperate to understand what was happening. She visited the local library and found an old article. The bungalow once belonged to a man named Yusuf Mirza and his daughter, Amara. The article, dated 1954, reported that Amara was found dead in the nursery. She had fallen down the stairs. Some believed it was an accident, but the townsfolk whispered that Yusuf was abusive. The article mentioned Amara's favorite possession, porcelain doll. Fatima's heart sank. The doll Noor found was likely Amara's, determined to rid the house of its evil. Fatima contacted an old cleric from the nearby mosque. The cleric visited the house, reciting verses and sprinkling holy water. As he entered the nursery, the temperature dropped. His voice wavered. "She is not at peace," he murmured. She is trapped in this toy. He asked Noor to hand over. The doll, Noor clutched it tightly and screamed. Her eyes turned glassy, her face pale. No, you can't take her away. She's my only friend, the cleric insisted, gently pulling the doll from her hands. As he did, Noor fainted. They wrapped the doll in a cloth and sealed it in a box. The cleric performed a special prayer before burying the box deep into the ground. Far from the town, Noor slept for 3 days straight. When she finally awoke, she was confused. "Where's Amara?" she asked softly. Fatima hugged her, tears of relief rolling down her cheeks. "She's gone. Beta, she's gone." But peace was short-lived. A week later, while cleaning the attic, Fatima found an old sketchbook. It was full of drawings childlike, crude, but terrifying. In every drawing was a girl with green eyes and a red dress, and in the last page, a drawing of Noor sleeping in her bed, with the doll by her side. Fatima dropped the book in horror. She ran downstairs, heart pounding, and burst into Noor's room. The bed was empty, the window was open, and sitting on the pillow was the doll. Its eyes sparkled, and it smiled.